So, as I was saying, we're going to kick in a series of keynotes around AI and some of the most controversial aspects around AI. I think the next talk is, for me, at least personally, as someone who has been, I specialize in AI. I'm a computer scientist. I specialize in AI. I specialize in neural networks when no one gave a shit about that, by the way. And everyone was like, yeah, that field is dead. So I'm trying to look for those guys now, okay? But the truth is that I've always been very pro-AI until I started seeing all the craziness that AI is bringing. And now, maybe it's because I'm older. That's why people tell me, Alex, you're getting older. That's why. But now I'm getting scared. And I'm getting scared because there's certain situations that deal with humans that AIs are very bad at. And to talk precisely about that, I want to welcome our next speaker, which has an incredible track record. Apart from being a DJ, and I hope that we get some kind of DJ mix table at some point, and we can see if you remember anything about that. He's been holding several positions in his current company, which is Babbel. He was from CTO all the way to being the president of their US expansion, Babbel Inc., currently holding the position as Chief Strategist Officer at Babbel and in charge of finding new ways, new revenue streams, new business models for the business. So please welcome on stage our next speaker to talk about human prospects and AI, Thomas Hall. Big applause, guys.
Hey, thanks. So, good morning. Super nice introduction. I got some similarities with Alex in here as well. And my name is Thomas. I'm a co-founder of Babbel. We're a language learning company. And 20 years ago, I was actually studying computer science. So I'm one of those nerds who came from engineering, moved into business, moved into engineering, and all these ways. And my specialty at that time was in a subject called adaptive systems. As it was in Germany, the name was much more complicated than that. But it included all the things around neural networks, reinforcement learning, and something that isn't that popular today anymore, which is about fuzzy logic. Problem then was, at that time, that was like in the 2000s, late 90s, outside of university, nobody really cared about that. So it was super hard to find a job. No one in the industry would look into AI very seriously, because people have been burned before. AI made these waves a couple of times since the early 60s, and I was in a bad place there, at least to do a scientifically career. So that's when we got actually started with Babbel a couple of years later. We're a language learning company, so basically we're the top grossing language learning app there is outside of or in the world. And we're helping more than 1 million paying subscribers right now to actually learn a language. So from that perspective, that move into business wasn't actually that bad. And I think it's really crazy to see how AI has evolved over the last 20 years. It's super exciting right now. Sky's the limit. The best AI plays better Go than any human champion. That was not something that was supposed to be happening in the next 10 years. So I think this is really exciting. AI is now much better in detecting lung cancer in patients than any human being. And I think the outlook of that technology applied to healthcare, applied to other domains, about other products, is super exciting as well. So if you've been up and down through these waves, then the question obviously is, what could possibly go wrong this time with AI? And I think this is probably rather a rhetorical question. So maybe who of you still remembers Tay? Okay, the name alone not. Someone over here? Microsoft Tay was an approach from Microsoft to develop an AI chatbot. And that AI chatbot would actually learn from real-world interactions with 16 to 24 years old on Twitter in live. So it would start tweeting, it would learn from them, it would react to whatever people would say to them. And it just took about 24 hours before Microsoft had to shut that service down. Because it turned out Tay was becoming a pretty ugly person online. It started tweeting out racist stuff, sexist stuff. It started to insult quite a lot of people and their mother. So up until today, Tay is actually a private experience. No one is able to chat and interact with Tay anymore. Another really interesting example, I think, was Google image recognition when they launched something like that. So they spent a couple of years basically feeding and training N and I to do image classification. So basically, you would upload a picture, and that software would actually tell you what exactly was in that picture that you uploaded. The only problem was in there that apparently they never really tested it in a broad enough spectrum. So one of the big things that got them into super bad press for a very good reason was that it would detect black people mostly as gorillas and chimpanzees, something that is not very acceptable. Google obviously fixed that, and their fix up until today is mostly by not allowing anyone to tag gorillas in pictures anymore. So a very short-term fix. And I think some of the things that we've seen in there are rather symptoms of a more underlying problem. One of that is the data that we actually train those AIs on. Mostly when it comes from the real world, has all the features and all the benefits of the real world as well. So in a way, what AI is actually learning is that it's holding up a mirror against us, that it's showing us how our society and the data in our real world actually is. So it becomes much faster. The other thing is, on algorithms, even there is bias in there. So for example, you have like word embeddings, which is an algorithm that talks about closeness between different concepts in languages. So the boy is closer to a man, woman to a girl is closer. And that algorithm helped quite a lot in machine translation, getting it to much better quality. But if you're not careful and just apply the algorithm out of the box, for example, Spanish, German, French, Italian, nouns have genders. So it's der Tisch, like the male is a male subject in German, and it's a female concept in Spanish. So what that algorithm would actually learn is that the table is somewhat more manly from a behavior perspective in German, but a more female thing in Spanish. And this is obviously not something that we want. And especially not something that we want when AI takes about more of our personal space, if AI is being used to take decision on our behalf, and if it's working somewhere in the background where we can't really assess that. So I think we have to be very careful on how to do that. And in the last minutes that I have, I want to propose a couple of things that I think will definitely help in addressing those things. First, I think we as companies, and as tech companies especially, we should always be talking and thinking about building tools and not environments. So a tool is something that you use to achieve or to solve a problem in the real world. An environment, something is where you as a person are being placed into and are being, the success of a good environment has not that much to do with how it solves your problem, but how well you are feeding into the environment. So a tool gives you more control over the things. It can be used in lots of different places. And a very concrete example of that metaphor that we can use when building our products is, if we think of Facebook, I think Facebook is very much an environment, and the AI that actually feeds us the feed and makes sure, keeps us engaged. That is very much an environment AI. They choose to keep you within the Facebook ecosystem as long as possible. I think Facebook would look completely different if Mark would have thought of Facebook as a tool to solve a problem, like communication with your friends, connecting with people. I think that is one very specific example. Another thing that we as Bubble take super serious as well is we consider ourselves to be successful only if we get people outside of the app. We want people to talk to other people, not to machines. And you can see that a lot of that, where this is not true in different apps, where people learn the man, the boy, the man eats rice, the woman drinks milk, which is all super great language, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's all designed to keep you within the app, not to actually make communication with another human being. So I think that's another thing when creating something, we should always talk about how does that apply to the real world? How can we use our app and the things that we're doing to get into the real world? This one is probably the most obvious, looking back at the Google image recognition part, and probably the most hardest thing to pull off as well. Because I'm a pretty good example on that. I'm a white male, had a good education, coming from a middle-class family, so I know that I have lots of blind spots, things that I just don't see, and I don't blame the Google engineers for behaving in exactly that way. That led to that chimpanzee fiasco. But the way I found what works best is if we want to build products that a lot of people outside of us will use, then to make sure that we don't embed these biases. The best way to actually do that is by having a super diverse workforce internally as well. Because that diverse workforce internally will make sure that the feedback cycles are much, much faster. Google wouldn't have spent 2 years actually developing that and then releasing it and then figuring out that there is a problem if they would have a more diverse set of people involved in the creation. So to me as an engineer, diversity very much is a tool in itself, and it's a tool to make sure we don't do any dumb mistakes and dumb decisions that are obvious to other people, but not to us. The last thing here is talking about feedback loops. And feedback loops, I think, need to be happening and need to be built in with a human component in there. We can't tell the AI what to look out. We can't delegate the vision on how we want our society to be like to an AI. AI is a super great tool if we already know what we want to achieve. It can optimize against that. It can use real-world data. But we have to have the vision and provide that and make sure the AI is bound within our vision. And that's not something that we can easily delegate. So 20 years ago, I really believed that technology would be able to solve all of our problems, and that we would just need to throw more technology at the same problem, and it would be helping. I don't believe that anymore. I think there is a couple of things that we can do that I talked about, which is helping getting people outside of the app, fostering a different environment in the workplace as well, getting more diversity in there, and building humans into that human-AI feedback loop. So basically, the result here is make sure that we don't treat every problem as a tech problem, because some of them are not. And if we keep that, then I'm super confident that all of the progress that we made with AI in the last 20 years, that this can really help us to amplify our solution creation capabilities, that we can really deliver something and work around these problems that I addressed earlier on. So not every problem that we have is a tech problem. We should really figure out which type of a thing that we're addressing right now. Thanks very much.